Last time I started developing a low-resolution graphics library for my 8-bit BBC Micro from the 1980s. I'm using its Teletext screen mode, which takes just 1K of the precious 32K available. That does present some limitations with chunky 80x75 resolution and awkward graphics control characters for colours. But I still managed to plot some graphs and get an 8x8 sprite moving across the screen. Now I want to improve my early code, fix some bugs, and get the graphics library functional enough that we can have some fun with it. For this library, I'm using assembly language to generate machine code to get the performance I need. As someone who's spent many years using high-level structured languages, I need to get my thinking back into the machine code way. Something that was pointed out to me in the comments was my use of jump to subroutine in my entry point code. I could just jump to the main routine and let it return and easily save myself some processor cycles. It's a quick win, but because I'm still thinking like a C++ developer, I completely missed that. I also spotted a bug when using my simple sprite animation. I paint, then erase, then paint again in a new position. It can move left to right fine, but there's a bug going backwards because the code may try to combine with the control character to the left. That can result in garbage left on the screen. Again, it's an easy fix, just test for control characters before doing the logical OR, but it does hit performance very slightly. Talking of performance, let's look at where we are with that. Because when we make changes, we want to balance function with speed, and to do that, we need to measure. And right now, our performance indicates about 645 paints per second. That's just for a simple sprite paint. The next functional improvement I want to make is around the edges of the screen. At the moment, we don't handle this at all. For example, if we provide a negative X position by 256-X, then we get ASCII text on the other side of the screen as the sprite wraps around and loses its control character. In Y, this could be even more problematic, as we could end up writing over areas of memory outside the screen. To handle this, I still want to calculate the start address using the same method. But if we're at the top of the screen, this could be outside the normal screen bounds, so I extend my lookup table for the line start address to start above the normal screen memory. I'm not going to write to these addresses, but it may be my starting point for position arithmetic. For my X position, I'll keep track of the pixel position on screen using XW, the working position in pixels. I'll update this as we paint. If it's not in range, then don't paint this pixel pair. That handles the left and right hand side, but we need to check it on every pixel pair on every line, so it's going to hit performance a little bit unless we optimize it later. For top and bottom, we can update a value in YW to follow the working vertical position, and at the start of the line processing, just abort the whole line if it's outside the screen. Here's a test program I put together. It has a set of coordinates chosen to exercise the sprite paint in various positions. It also measures the paint and erase performance. We can see that the new functionality has reduced performance a little bit. This is all very lovely, but I'm still not happy about a major part of the code. As a reminder, we paint pixel pairs because the screen is character-based with graphics characters made up of 2 wide by 3 high pixels, so it's aligned to 2 pixels per screen character. The section that paints the pixel pairs is in 3 parts. The first part does the leading pair, which may contain either 1 or 2 pixels from the definition depending on whether the X position is even. If it is even, that means it's aligned with the character boundary. If it's odd, it's offset by 1 pixel. The second part does the middle pairs, and the final part does a trailing pair if required because of the position offset at the start. That all works, but it means we have very similar code in 3 places, and each part has to call the right pixel pair routine. If we can combine this code in one section, we can make it much more readable and possibly improve performance by including right pixel pair directly in the code. To do that, we just need to count how many bits we've rolled off a sprite definition line. If we're painting at an odd position, we just roll 1 off first time and then continue to roll 2 at a time until we run out of bits. Now we can take the right pixel pair code and call it in one place, or, to save a load of jump and return cycles, just embed it in the new code. We can also think about some possible optimizations, but I need to be careful. Not all things that sound like improvements always are. it sometimes costs more cycles to test for a redundant condition than to just let the condition run, and you can easily introduce undesirable effects. We can see in this case our test program looks okay, and we have improved performance. A big issue left over from last time is animation flicker. When I move a sprite, I erase it and then draw it in a new place, and there's a good chance you'll see the sprite flicker. I can synchronize with the display frame, but that's not guaranteed to work on every part of the screen, especially if we want to have lots of sprites on screen. So let's take a quick step back and look at how the screen update works. In old CRT displays, there was a beam that scans from left to right and down the screen, drawing whatever we want to see. When the beam gets to the bottom, it's switched off while it returns to the top of the screen to do the next frame. If you can update the display while the beam is returning to the top, you can make things much cleaner, but you've only got about 1.6 milliseconds to do that. However, if I build the frame up in another off-screen region of memory while the screen itself is being updated, and then switch that into the video RAM when the beam is returning to the top, that would be super smooth. The problem I want to avoid is if I update the screen memory from the buffer when the video controller is partway down the screen. If that happens, then the top part will show the old frame and the bottom half will show the new frame, and you'll see what's known as tearing on the screen. If things are moving a lot, it becomes very noticeable. Because we're using the 1K Teletext mode, we have spare memory to have an off-screen buffer, but there is a minor issue. Ideally, you just tell the video controller to address the other area of memory, so it instantly switches over and then swap back on the next frame. This is known as double buffering, but the BBC's Teletext video controller won't let us do this. I can change the start address, but it just wraps around the same 1K. So I'll have to copy my 1K buffer into the screen memory, and that takes time, longer than the 1.6 milliseconds we have. Now, as long as I stay ahead of the beam, the frame won't tear, but that'll eat into the time I have to create the next frame, so the faster I make this copy, the better. But remember, it's unlikely that everything on the screen will move, so if we only copy the parts that change, that could save some time. And that's the approach I've taken. I keep a map indicating the lines that have been changed on screen. It's called ModMap. ModMap doesn't have to be big because there are only 25 lines on the Teletext page, so we can access it quickly. As a note, I also tried storing the minimum and maximum X coordinates changed in ModMap, effectively recording modified boxes on the screen, but processing that took as long as the time saved from fewer copied bytes, so I just kept it simple and used a modified line map. Now I'll introduce a do-update routine. Nothing will show on the screen until this is called. When it is called, it checks what lines are marked as modified in ModMap and only copies those lines to video memory, then it clears the ModMap for the next frame. Do-update can also synchronize with the video controller by checking for a retrace flag to be set by the system. The do-paint-sprite and do-erase-sprite routines now point to the buffer memory rather than the screen, and there's a new do-clear routine to fill the buffer with space characters ready for use. So the library user's code will look something like this. We call do-clear once to clear the buffer, then we have the start of our display loop. We call do-erase-sprites and do-paint-sprites as required. This only updates inside the buffer memory. When we're happy that we've painted our frame, then we can call do-update. This waits for the video retrace and only updates modified lines to video memory. Then we're at the end of our display loop, so we loop back and do the next frame. Here's a demo of 4 sprites flying around the screen, each in a different colour and flirting with the screen edges. The code to calculate the coordinates is still in BASIC, and that introduces a significant performance hit, but the actual rendering looks pretty good. If I pre-calculate the coordinates and store it in a lookup so the whole loop is in machine code, it runs much faster, and I can make each movement finer and the animation is smoother. I now have a simple API for painting a sprite of my design in colour at any position, even over the edge of the screen. I can also use a buffer like a hidden canvas to render a frame before I update to the screen in one call. That's a good start, but there's more to do. I'm sure there are performance tweaks to be made, code that can be neater, and probably the odd bug I've not yet found. But next I'll be looking at introducing layers and entities so I can make a proper games engine for Teletext Mode 7. Then we can have some real fun trying to create a game or two. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what I'm doing, check out my other videos and please like and subscribe.